Hello, everyone. I'm Jerry Richards. Green, that's Jenny Gunn, who's I'm also very glad to have here on the panel. This is our panel on technology facilitated gender-based violence, which is a growing threat to many people, many marginalized people especially, but often is leveraged against women for various reasons. And that's what we're going to explore. We have three wonderful guests with us today. And I don't know what order they are on your screen. So when I say your name, please give us a wave. We have Carrie Goldberg. Here she is. Michelle Gonzalez and Jenny Gunn. So the first thing I'm going to do is ask each of our panelists to take a minute or two to just introduce yourself to the group. You might talk about what it is that you do or why you are interested in this topic. And I did not, take your arm and wrench it too badly, but that you were willing to talk about this. So Carrie, why don't you start?
Sure. Good morning to everybody. I'm Carrie Goldberg. It's really nice to be zooming in to the Now panel. And I was delighted when I met Geraldine when I was giving a talk at Chapel Hill and learned about this event. And she said it was on a Saturday, and I said, I don't care. I'd love to talk to all of you about some of the work that we do. And it's fun to do this, especially with Michelle, who my firm has been working with since our inception back in 2014. So I own a law firm that's based in Brooklyn that is devoted to representing people who are the targets of harms that mostly are facilitated through the internet. So we represent people who are the victims of stalking and harassment and child sexual abuse material and deep fakes and the whole gamut of sexual violations that happen both online and offline. And so we're doing everything from getting restraining orders for our clients to advocating for the criminal justice system to take their cases seriously, to suing their powerful predators, or in many cases, our kind of most talked about cases are ones that we have against big tech companies. So we've sued Omegle, TikTok, Snap, Grindr, and it's always about some sort of really extreme harm that our client has experienced because of them using those online products in a seemingly normal way. But I'll talk more about that, but I'm thrilled to be here.
All right, thank you so much. And Michelle.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michelle Gonzalez. I am the executive director of a nonprofit called Cyber Civil Rights Initiative, or CCRI. And we have 5 program areas, including direct services, research, advocacy, advising tech companies, and outreach. I have a background working with women and girls in both immigration and in the areas of domestic violence and sexual assault. I came to CCRI 6 years ago, and it was at that time that I was starting to learn about image-based sexual abuse. And the first time that I learned about this was through a New Yorker feature about Carrie Goldberg. And I just couldn't believe it when I realized the connection. So it's been an honor for me to work with the team at CCRI, to be in touch with Carrie throughout the years. And I work at CCRI because of the mission and because the team is known as being brilliant, and I can share that the team is super kind. They're as kind as they are brilliant. So
Okay.
that's my intro.
Yeah, thank you so much. Jenny.
Hi, everybody. Y'all have probably seen me before if you've done any Now Charlotte stuff. I've been a part of Now Charlotte here in the greater Charlotte metro area for 5 years, and I've been a board member of some capacity for 4 years. I'm also genderqueer. If you can't tell by my voice, I am a transgender woman slash genderqueer non-binary. So my pronouns are she, her, and they, them. I'm heavily involved with the film festival here for the LGBT Pride, which is called Real Out. So there's a lot of topic about bullying and sexual harassment and sexual assault. We have a short film festival on the first day of the thing, and many of the topics, especially since Me Too and creating that awareness that sexual assault and sexual harassment, one, we got to talk about it and actually acknowledge it. And I believe a lot of the major platforms like Meta and Twitter, or X, whatever they call themselves this day, I like dead naming Twitter, just for personal reasons. And it seems to get Elon Musk kind of upset. But you know, so I do 2 podcasts as well. So I do broadcasting for a living, and it's one of those things I've known as an entity. We get attacked and bullied a lot in different ways, and how these platforms can do very innocuous, low key bullying themselves. And I talk about this on the show a lot, actually, as far as in our society, we need governmental responsibility, we need corporate responsibility, we need personal responsibility. But many people in the political hemisphere on the opposite side of me, I'm a flaming progressive. And so the flaming conservatives tend to love to just put it on the individuals because it's the easiest to pass the buck. And platforms like Meta have to do a better job, and they can create safe spaces. It just costs them time and effort, and they don't care to do that. And so we as individuals and entities, we need to create as much cyber education as we can. We need to create as much awareness as we can. I try to do this on my show and recommending how people can do settings on their social media to thin out or insulate, because I'm a big target. I've had to take a lot of steps to make sure. I mean, some of the banter I find amusing myself, but I'm a strong personality. But say it's a 16-year-old young cis or trans girl, somebody that's very vulnerable, a 24-year-old person, you know, that's finding their own and their brain's still developing. Those type of people are the most vulnerable. They're the most vulnerable to self-harm, image issues, and things like that. And so we have to keep this in the common talk, the common dialogue. We've got to create harm reduction in our society. We have to, you know, there's so many rabbit holes we could go down on in this deal, but we have to create more safe spaces generally, and create more education, have more dialogue about harm, because it can come in so many different ways. And I'll use just a quick example. I've got a lot of friends that are social media fashionistas and influencers, and because their fashion styles are very edgy, they get cyberbullied not only by Meta, by having their accounts slowed down or inaccessible. I've noticed very, very outspoken progressive women that have gotten their accounts slowed down recently by Meta on Facebook and Instagram. And by doing that, you're not getting those counter voices to those more aggressive, conservative, Proud Boy, Moms for Liberty type crowd. And so you're seeing a lot of bullyism, and one of the techniques they use is attacking somebody's looks, their sexuality, their gender expression, that sort of thing. And I'm seeing a lot of that, and using harmful dialogue, which can lead to a lot of other issues psychologically, and it gets very complicated. But that is why harm culture, rape culture still exists in 2023.
Okay.
They've created safe spaces for themselves, but we haven't created safe spaces for the actual victims.
Okay, hang on, hang on,
Yeah,
hang on
I'm
to that
fine.
thought. Okay, all right, because I'm sure that you will have other things to say as we go ahead here and other examples. And I'll trust you to come in at or call you to come in at various points. But let's go back to Michelle, because I think Jenny has got us started on thinking about the ways in which people are attacked. So you can give us an overview of what you see happening, the frequency and so forth. Thank you.
I'd be happy to give that overview. So I will get us started on an overview of what some of the crime types and abuse categories are, and just kind of do some level setting around terminology and what all of this is. So one term that encompasses many different crime types is image-based sexual abuse, or IBSA. And this is a term that was coined by Claire McLean and her research colleague, Erica Rackley in UK. They have excellent work if you'd ever like to look them up and read their work. And they define IBSA as the non-consensual creation or distribution of private sexual images. And again, IBSA is a term that encompasses a number of different crime types. So some of these crime types include what CCRI refers to as NDII, or the non-consensual distribution of intimate images. You may have heard this in the past described as either revenge porn or a term that CCRI used to use, non-consensual pornography. NDII is the actual distribution of the private sexually explicit image without the consent of the person depicted. In North Carolina, the criminal statute refers to this conduct as the disclosure of private images. You can find this law on CCRI's website. So when we talk about NDII, it's important to remember that this relates to the consent of the distribution. It includes images that are originally obtained with consent. So for example, if someone shares an intimate selfie with a romantic partner within the context of a trusting relationship, and that person understands that the image will be maintained privately between the two of them. So even if that image is shared initially with consent with one person, and then that person distributes it broadly, that is considered NDII. It's also considered NDII, obviously, in the instance of hacking or using hidden cameras or taping an assault. You may have heard about the second abuse category. You've probably heard in recent months the term deepfakes. CCRI refers to this as synthetic NDII. And this is when that sexually explicit image is made to look real, but it actually isn't. And even though it's not real, it can still cause incredible harm for the person in the image. You may have also heard about sextortion or sexual extortion. This has become a term that people are more familiar with in the last couple of years, particularly on college campuses, because the rates of financial scams have really skyrocketed. But this is the threat to distribute the person's image. So the image may not yet be released, but the perpetrator may be threatening the victim by saying, if you don't stay in this relationship, or if you want custody of the kids, or if you start to claim half of our financial assets, or if you don't send me another intimate image, or if you don't have sex with these people, I will distribute your images. So that's what sextortion is.
Thanks so much, Michelle. It gives me a good launching point to talk about some of the ways that we lawyers at my firm deal with representing clients who come to us with the very problems that you talked about, with deep fakes or cyber stalking, or image-based sexual abuse, child sexual abuse material, etc. So, just to kind of give everyone an overview, there's really multiple parallel lines of sort of criminal and civil options for everybody. So in our justice system, we have this huge patchwork of with 50 states, we have every state may have, has a slightly different version of the same kind of category of laws. So in New York, if somebody is videoed without their consent or knowledge, it's called unlawful surveillance. And the dissemination of that is called distribution of unlawful surveillance. Other places, it's called video voyeurism. But generally, I think all states have some sort of law that makes it criminal for a person to be recorded without their consent, and for that material to be disseminated. And I think we're now at 49 states that have criminal laws that relate to the non-consensual dissemination of pictures that were obtained with permission. So we're not talking about video voyeurism, but we're talking about somebody who was where the victim consensually shared an image, and then the recipient non-consensually shared it beyond the victim's consent. And so when I opened my firm, CCRI was a couple years in, and there were 3 states that had criminal laws. And at the time, the ACLU and a lot of internet privacy activists said there's no way that it can be constitutional for there to be criminal laws that relate to the dissemination of non-consensual images. It violates free speech. It violates, the internet's going to be destroyed if people can't share images without other people's consent. And CCRI was the leader in very quickly changing the public opinion, working with journalists and really advancing the conversation. Back 10 years ago, it was all about, well, you'd have to be some sort of pervert or some really dumb, irresponsible person to take a picture of yourself and share it. And then a bunch of celebrities became prey because their accounts were hacked. And the conversation made it actually it's actually, at this point, because we're all so wedded to our devices, it's a normal part of dating, really, is that people share intimate images, and it's not perverse, it's not stupid. And so the public opinion has changed, and with that, we now have 49 states plus DC plus a lot of countries who criminalize the non-consensual sharing of it. Last year, I was at the White House when, or was it earlier this year? It was earlier. No, it was last year. When President Biden actually, in his recertification of VAWA, included a civil claim that victims can use to sue for non-consensual dissemination. And it's just now been very widely accepted that there are consequences for somebody who shares images without permission. And the judgment has gone from the victim to the offender. And that is just such a victory and a triumph of changing the public perception and having laws that also say, it's not so much about let's get everyone thrown in jail. That's no one's interest. It's about saying this is actually a societal issue that we care about as lawmakers, and those laws have indeed deterred a lot of people from sharing sharing other people's intimate images, which was the whole goal. We're now seeing that same progress with deepfakes. We now have, I think, like, we have several states that have laws that criminalize deepfakes. New York just passed one, and several others that make it a civil action, so somebody can sue for it. And it's one of the rare things in my field where there's been a lot more media interest in it before there's been victims that have come to me for help. I've always had celebrities come with this problem, but not very many non-public figures who've been deepfaked. But the media was really interested in it early, and so that's driven a lot of the conversation. So it's nice that there is this proactive thing, whereas with image-based sexual abuse 10 years ago, no one would even report on it because they didn't want to use the word porn in a headline. So these are all like really like moving, breathing, dynamic issues that we're facing. And another thing I want to say is that with criminal laws, the challenge is always that the victim doesn't have the ability to make anybody in law enforcement investigate or prosecute a case. That is completely within the domain and of the government, whether it's federal or civil, or federal or state. And so it's the government has a monopoly on who gets investigated, who gets arrested, who gets prosecuted. And there's nothing a victim can do, which is why it's really important to be looking also at other ways that the survivor, the victim, can be in the driver's seat. Because we know that you can have really great, strong laws, but if you don't have law enforcers who want to try using them, or who value the harms to women, which are consistently undervalued, and we're still, even with laws, we're still at the mercy of whatever sexist and biased beliefs our enforcers come to the table with. So that's why it's important that for nobody to think that their only way to justice and help is through the criminal justice system. We have found that the civil justice system, specifically getting orders of protection for people who are currently under attack, who are currently being harassed and blackmailed, and whose images are being disseminated, getting them an order of protection will stop the bleed. And for many communities have free legal lawyers who will represent them free in those cases, and you can get an order of protection the very day you walk into court. So it might take many calls and visits to the local precinct to report a crime. However, you can walk into family court or a civil court and get an order of protection if you prove the harms, and walk out with an order of protection that day, get it served on your offender, and then if the offender violates it and contacts the victim or does anything that is outlined in the order that violates it, then that becomes a new crime. And we have found that it is easier to get law enforcement interested in the crime of violating an order of protection than for whatever the criminal behavior was that was underlying that. So it might be a more black and white issue that this person reached out in violation of an order of protection after it was issued, then whatever the 6 months of stalking behavior was that resulted in the grounds for that order of protection. So it creates a new crime, and one that can be sometimes more easily enforced. And plus we see so much deference to the order of protection by the offender. Sometimes, especially if somebody is a stalker, they just need to be told that you will get in a lot of trouble by, and be told that by an authority like a judge, for them to just redirect. So it's not going to save anybody's life, this piece of paper. But if a violent offender is hell-bent on just destroying a person, but for a lot of people, it completely does stop the stalking.
Mhm.
And then the only other thing I want to say, and I know we're really tight on time, is that there's also litigation, which is an option. No one decides and wakes up the next day and saying I want to sue Meta, or I want to sue Amazon for this horrible thing that happened. But it is another powerful tool that we use all the time, when the harm is really based on the design of the platform.
Mhm. All right, thank you. All right, I'm going to go to Jenny again, because Jenny, you were talking about your reactions to some of the less pleasant things that have come your way, as well as your friends. Now, how do you, I guess, see that in light of some of the things that we've already heard? And I'm thinking that Carrie has really told us that there are means to redress those harms that might come your way. So
Yeah, and I think, as a consumer of the social media and somebody that, my shows broadcast on Facebook on the video version, and then the audio version is extracted and we put it on all the major platforms, it also paints a large target because my name's associated with it, and I have social media accounts that are under my name. And so people go and they try to find me or message, because there's instant messaging capabilities on most social media platforms. Therein lies, and I'm a Charlotte famous person, but I'm not a national celebrity like Alyssa Milano or stuff like that. And a lot of them have the resources to have safeguards and people that actually monitor their social media, and where they don't see the insidious messages that sometimes get through no matter how much protocols you put in. For me, and I'm gonna say this as what I've been doing in this very aggressive world. So much anti-trans pushback, so much so that, to give you a context of what I'm talking about, in 2022, violent crimes and hate crimes against transgender people and gender diverse people went up over 30% in 2022 versus 2021.
mhm.
So we're a huge target. We're coming up on Transgender Day. Remember, it's November 20th, and it's locally being observed on Sunday, the 19th. And it's a commemoration of all the transgender people slain around the world in hate crimes. Back where I live is the second most dangerous city in the United States for trans people. Yay, the South. But I digress. I take a lot of social media breaks. I don't engage as much in chatter, especially if somebody starts to become aggressive at me. I use my favorite tool, which is the block button, and then I never talk to them again. I encourage that, especially with people where no matter what the discussion is, it seems like when the discussion gets personal, whether they attack what I look like or what I sound like or whatever, that's at the point where I say, maybe I shouldn't engage with this person at all. It's time to go ahead and block them and put them in the trash can of social media.
Mhm.
And we all have to be mindful ourselves personally on how much we engage, whether it's in person, in a stalking or whatever, and take the precautions, and also take the legal steps that Carrie outlined, which is the protection orders. Find your local pro bono nonprofit where they have tons of attorneys that can do things like that and consult with you. I know in this area we have, I'm blanking on the name, but they're you can find them on the Mecklenburg County court's website on pro bono attorneys, and they do a fabulous job for things like that. And use the laws to protect you and be proactive in your own safeguard, and that includes driving home. As somebody that's taught self-defense classes and has been a martial artist most of my life, I can tell you simple things like checking your mirror, and if a car has been following you and making the same turns, make some erratic concentric right hand turns. And if you feel like you're going to lose them, dial 911. Almost everybody has an emergency feature on your cell phone, and tell the police where you're at, and meet them in a well-lit parking lot. Make sure when you're leaving a building that you're not being followed. I've been assaulted before. I've been the victim of a hate crime. And I can tell you, the 9 guys that jumped me and assaulted me, in retrospect, you know, had I been paying a little bit more attention, I may have gotten out of that situation. And I, yeah, you know, obviously I was a crime victim, but also it's created more awareness in me, and it's created more, you know, we all have to, not that I'm victim blaming, but I am saying be aware, have your head on a swivel. Times are a little cray cray right now. People are a little edgy. We have so many issues in our society. One of the things we can do is check our six, check out a social media, do something else, do some online video games, or do, you know, I play a game called Heyday, you know, that I've been playing for almost 10 years. And when I'm having problems with people getting aggressive with me on social media, I start playing my games more. I start doing more hobbies. I start doing more shopping for fashion and talking about blogging about fashion again. I do things that are distractions so that we don't go back into those dangerous environments, and be proactive with our mental health, and things of that nature. And I think a lot of times as women and feminine identities, we put ourselves in situations because we've been taught to shrink ourselves. We've been taught to take it, to be able to roll with the punches, be more ladylike, and just, you know, and assume responsibility. And I call that BS. You don't have to take it. You there are ways that you can unplug or distance yourself from a social circle that is enabling or looking the other way. And you know, please protect yourself, and please protect your mental health. Your inner peace is priceless.
I think that's a very wise thing to say. I am so sorry to hear that you had that experience. And I guess I also want to congratulate you on coming through it in such a positive way. I don't know how I myself would react to that.
I do want to say one thing. Group therapy and therapy helps a lot. And be truthful with your therapist. If something like that, there's 2 people you should be truthful with that are professionals: your attorney and your therapist. And they won't judge you. It is private information. And I'm telling you, I'm a big fan of talk therapy, and it can help you through so much. It can help you through insecurities, codependencies, putting ourselves in harmful situations. You are valuable part of society. You are enough, and value yourself. Invest into yourself if you can.
So Jenny is talking about things that you can do to protect yourself. And I think you can add to that. How should somebody handle this kind of an attack, or what are ways perhaps to guard yourself from being a victim of this kind of attack, a cyber attack?
Sure. Jenny, thanks so much for sharing your story. And like Geraldine, I'm terribly sorry to hear what happened to you. For those in the audience, there are some safety tips that could be helpful to enhance or increase your safety. I want to start off by saying, if you are victimized by image-based sexual abuse or an offender out there, I want to say first, it's not your fault. And I want to say second, it's not your fault. And also, it is not your fault. You are not alone. And certainly there are some steps that we can take to try to be a little bit safer. But again, like others have said, the fault lies squarely with the offender and with the tech companies who enable this bad conduct. I'll share that some safety tips could be first considering safer sexting. Again, I don't want to suggest that there's such a thing as entirely safe sexting, but if you are sharing an intimate image, you could consider leaving out your face, also leaving out anything that identifies you, like very specific jewelry or a tattoo, or if you have a very unique poster in your background that somebody might recognize. You might want to eliminate those identifying features in an image. Another piece is remembering that you want to take, if possible, the original photo that is a little bit safer without that identifying content. Because if you take the photo and then, let's say, crop it or delete some of the background, and then if someone finds your phone, they can undo the changes that you made. So those are some tips for safer sexting. You also might want to consider the person with whom you are sexting and really determine your own personal boundaries. Is that person pressuring you to share an image? What do you feel comfortable with? Also, where did you meet the person? I am seeing I'm seeing the highest incidence of sextortion taking place on platforms like Snap and Instagram, where perpetrators will groom thousands of users at a time, and they will chat and DM with somebody and then say, hey, let's move over to WhatsApp because I really, really like you. I want to get to know you. You've probably heard that WhatsApp has end-to-end encryption, which is a safety tool for many activists. It is also very hard to take down images off of an app that has end-to-end encryption. So if somebody is inviting you from Snap or Instagram or someplace like that, that's public and social, and you don't know them, and then they're inviting you to WhatsApp, and let's say they share an image and they ask you for one, that could be a really, really big flag and a really big warning sign that you might want to go through their profile, make sure that they're real, see if they have a history online, and really determine that this is a real person before you do share that image. On your social media, you may want to use strong security settings. You might want to consider, if it's possible, on whatever app you're using, to hide your friend list. Because what a lot of perpetrators do is they'll scrape your friend list and then threaten the victim, and they'll say, well, I know who your friends are, so I'll send this to your friend list unless you give me an image or give me $500 or something like that. On your devices, you do want to do those regular updates. I know I always ignore them, but you want to try to keep up with those. And we're really accustomed to looking at the devices that we touch. You also want to look at your cloud storage and see what settings are on your cloud storage. Do you have two-factor authentication, and how many people in your household are linked to your cloud storage? And then the next piece is, if somebody does ask you for money, we do suggest not paying that money. Some people will. Usually what happens is that when you pay money, there will be an additional demand for even more. So those are just some strategies, and
I'm sure that, yeah, I'm sure that there are more, and more personal things too, as Jenny was saying. I think I'd like to open this up to the audience, take the questions from from the room.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my question is for Carrie. You were talking about unlawful surveillance, and in my understanding in North Carolina is that if one person consents to a conversation or something being recorded, that they can do that. So you don't have to have both people. And then, and then you were talking about dissemination. And so my question is, does it have to be disseminated to try to go and get some type of court order to stop them? Or is it enough to know that they're constantly videoing you and harassing you, in the sense of, the example that I'm thinking of is somebody recording everyone that's coming in front of on their street. So they know when they're coming to your house, they know when you're leaving, they know who's there. If there's anybody, workmen or whatever, they're coming and they're interviewing them and harassing them. And so is there any way to go criminally for that kind of surveillance, to say, you don't have my consent to just constantly monitor me?
That's a great question. Thank you. So
Thanks.
the type of conduct that we're talking about in the unlawful surveillance and the video voyeurism realm, it really has to do with intimate video recordings where the parties have a reasonable expectation of privacy. So it tends to be in the videos that are taken without knowledge or consent in the bedroom, in changing rooms, in the bathroom. And usually there's a requirement that the video contain private parts and sexual conduct. In our country, we don't have the same sort of right to privacy that the rest of the world has because of the First Amendment. And so the recording of people, like just in regular surveillance in public places, is not something that generally is illegal, nor is the dissemination of that. We don't even have a property interest in our own images if somebody else takes it. We don't have intellectual property that says that somebody can't take our picture in a public place and then post that, because really the person who takes the picture has the copyright interest in those images. So the conduct that you're describing, and I'm not going to pretend to be familiar with North Carolina law. Everything is going to be very specific to the state and the black and white letter of the law and the exact content of what was filmed. But generally, there's just no privacy interest in material that was captured in public settings, and that's the world we live in right now.
Mm-hmm. I understand it's a second question.
There's three, but mine's really short. I'm
okay.
Bringing up somebody else's question. At one point, y'all said that first there were no laws or very few, and then maybe 49 states have a certain law, and then who would be the 50th? What was it? And then who was the 50th state that doesn't have it? Is it us?
No. No. The laws that we were talking about before are laws, specifically criminal laws around NDII, or the distribution of intimate images without consent. The state, is it 48 or 49, Carrie?
I know Massachusetts was a holdout for a very long time.
Massachusetts and South Carolina. I don't think that South Carolina has passed one yet. It's either 48 or 49, and the two states would be Massachusetts and South Carolina. Guam and Puerto Rico do have laws around this as well. There is not yet a federal law, but the SHIELD Act has been introduced in the House and the Senate and is under consideration. And that's something that CCRI has been advocating for I guess, a decade.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to? And we got another question here.
Hi, my question is for Jenny. Hi, Jenny, this is Janice from Charlotte. Hey.
Hey, Janice.
Hey, you mentioned that sometimes the social media companies may slow down your feed. sometimes I question if they've slowed down mine, red, white, and blue, we do a lot of stuff on social media. Is there a way to tell if they've slowed down your feed? Like I said, sometimes I question if they slowed mine down.
So Facebook and Instagram pump people's accounts, pump their brakes in several different ways. The best way to do that on Facebook, for example, is when you make a post, is down in the comment section, put at everyone. So you put the little at sign, the little ampersand or whatever it's called, and then put everyone. And so everybody that follows your page will be tagged in it, so they'll see that in their deal. And it resets the algorithm, and it keeps them from doing what they call a shadow ban, which is a very insidious way. If Meta doesn't like your content for whatever reason, whether it's too progressive or too intelligent or whatever they're doing that, I poke a lot of fun at Mark Zuckerberg. But one of the things you really, really want to do is also post a lot of videos and pictures on your Instagram, if you do use Instagram, and tie them together, because that you can speed up your algorithm and counterbalance it that way. And if you connect your Instagram to your Facebook account, which you can do, you can counterbalance the chicanery that they like to do. And I've been fighting battles with them for years. And so but a couple of things I would stay away from that they can slow down or even suspend your account, even commercial accounts. Be careful what dialogue you say about COVID. It is the new trick bag that if you mention COVID, and YouTube actually did this to my show, they took one of my shows offline because COVID got mentioned in a political discussion, and they said we were doing like medical discussions about COVID. I mean, it got mentioned in one sentence and an hour-long show, and the people that don't like my show got me flagged, and they pulled down one of our episodes off. It was 1 of 300. It wasn't highly viewed anyway, so it wasn't really a biggie, but we did protest it, and it got uploaded back onto the YouTube. So be careful about that. Be careful about using certain buzzwords that may be controversial or flaggable.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay.
Any
And
other
I've seen-
questions
I've
in
seen
the
that people
audience?
put that ad, so that put that ad in the comment after you post.
Yes.
Add
So
in the
after you
comments.
post it, yeah, in
Uh-huh.
the comment section, or where people can, say, hey, great post or whatever, immediately put at everyone on Facebook, and it'll tag everybody that follows your page. And it's a great way to not only speed up your algorithm and get you noticed more, but also too, put hashtags in your actual post. Use things like progressive, whatever you want your followers, whatever your typical follower is or member, you want to use a lot of hashtags and a lot of commonly used hashtags. But I would sincerely not use certain things, and COVID is one of them they can flag you for. So I wouldn't mention that in any of your posts.
All right, thank you, Jenny. Are there any other questions from the audience present? I think there's one in the chat that I was going to look at. It says, how can we become stronger, more effective upstanders, even if we are not on social media? And I'd like to maybe add to that, or say that we also would like to know how, as an organization, how can now, as an organization, help the victim survivors and help everyone, in a sense, to not become a victim and have to move to survivorship. And I will ask each of you in turn just to give us a minute on that. All right, so let's see. So Michelle, you're first on my screen, and what can we do?
Sure. Thanks for that important and very generous and very touching question. I would say for those specifically who are not online and who want to be supportive. One thing that you can do is to contact your local, regional, and state representatives, and you can ask for two things. With your state representatives, you can ask them to please sponsor the SHIELD Act. You can contact both your representatives and your senators. And like I mentioned, it's under consideration right now. So having as much support as possible will be essential. And the other piece is you can have a look at your state law. And I believe that the state law in North Carolina does include an intent to cause harm clause. It's broadly worded, but what it can mean sometimes is that some people who need protection may not be protected by that law, because if there's an intent to cause harm clause, the perpetrator can say, well, actually, I did not mean to cause that person harm. I believe in North Carolina, there's also a second part of that that says either the perpetrator intended to cause harm or caused others to cause harm. So it's a bit broad, but one thing you can do is contact your local representatives and say, we'd really like to protect all victims of this kind of conduct, including those where there's a situation where the perpetrator might say that it was satire or entertainment or a compliment or fun. So those are two things that you can do. And then I think also one more thing I'll add is you will likely come across people who are victims of this kind of conduct. And I would say a listening, sympathetic, validating ear can go a long way. Someone who confides in you may be dealing with a loss of social support from their family, their friends, their loved ones. They may be blamed for the conduct, they may be stigmatized. So as much as you can offer a validating, listening, sympathetic ear and let the person know that it's not their fault. And then you can also direct them to the CCRI Safety Center on our website, which is cybercivilrights.org. And that can help them know a few different steps that they might take.
I would suggest that everybody take a look at your website and also at Carrie's website, because there's lots of good information there. Carrie, what can we do?
I mean, I can't really top what Michelle just said. That was just so perfectly worded and explained. And I was thinking of what I was preparing what I was going to say, and it was kind of those ideas, but less beautifully put. And I do want people to go to CCRI's website. And if you do want to go to mine, it's cagoldberglaw.com. I entered this line of work kind of involuntarily. I myself was the target of an ex-boyfriend's stalking and blackmailing, and he had my nude images and videos. And I wasn't doing anything. I never had any ambition of starting a law firm. I was working in elder abuse, but I got this education into the limits of what victims have available to them in terms of help. And I found that when I was going through it, what I needed was somebody to tell me, like Michelle said, that it wasn't my fault. And I needed somebody to just go with me to court and to help me figure out the legal fees. And it was surprising to see that some of the people that I'd always thought I could rely on in a pinch actually were really intimidated by what I was going through. And what I was going through was so outside of what they were safe being around. And they also, of course, were being targeted, like the people, whenever there's a stalking situation, I'm sure Jenny can attest to this. It's they
Mm.
don't just target you, they target everyone in your circle. And you know, like this person reached out to 26 friends, ex-boyfriends, parents of ex-boyfriends, every single one of my siblings, their wives, threatening them all with all sorts of different IRS things and stuff. And so no one that was in my inner circle really wanted to help because they didn't want to become more of a target. And so, you know, what we've found at our firm is that the underlying abuse is alienating and isolating, but also the progress or the process of getting the fix and trying to navigate the justice systems and the criminal systems and going through that is its own layer of isolation. So it's like the victims are going through something that no one else in their life is going through, you know, both from the underlying act, but also in the cure for it. And
Right.
so, you know, they need a lot of hand holding and they need financial support and referrals and therapy. And so like, this is not like lovely advice, but like help them find money so that they can get good advice, or help them find pro bono lawyers so that they're not doing this all by themselves, because it is just it is salt on the wound to have to navigate this alone.
Thank you. Thank you. Jenny, 1 minute for you. Sorry.
Okay, I'll make it quick.
You're in the group. You can always come, you're in with us, so you can always come back and, you know, holler at us if we're not doing something right.
And I talk to the public every week for 2 hours a week. So just tune into my shows. But real quick, get involved. So there's strength in numbers. There's powers in numbers. Join a self-defense class, because they're for all abilities. You can learn self-defense moves even in a wheelchair. Second thing, join women's groups. Join peer-to-peer groups if you're LGBT. Like you're doing right now. Like what you're doing right now can empower you, inspire you. Look at these two powerful professionals that I'm sitting next to in cyberspace, and the information and the wealth of information. Reach out to these type of people that have knowledgeable. My bootleg show probably won't give you as much of empowerment, but it's at least it's funny and you'll laugh, and I have great guests on there. Create your own peer-to-peer group. You don't have to be a licensed therapist to create a support group. A support organization can look like just meeting for coffee, you know, once a week on Thursdays, and the kind of people that you want to associate with. Be the person that you want to be every day. Create that new image. You're not set in stone. You're not. We don't have a caste system here in this country. We can reach out. Most importantly, join a nonpartisan political group like Indivisible. There's a local chapter in every deal. Join now. There's so many red, white, and blue here in Charlotte that Janice was talking about. It's a fabulous organization. There's so many. Join the NAACP. Even if you're not a person of color, you can still join the NAACP, participate. They've been very welcoming to me. And so there's so many. LULAC, if you have a LULAC chapter, there's so many opportunities to get involved. And if you want to get on Facebook just to create a private group, you can just make a private profile, set up a private group that's invitation only, and just find out your real-time friends and invite them and create a women's group. We have a women's group here in Charlotte that's a private group on Facebook. It started with about 20 of us. It's mostly queer women and straight women, and they call it the Progressive Women of Charlotte. And now we're over, it's like 2,000 or 3,000 women and LGBT people are now involved. And they talk about everything about their kids, what school to go to helping new arrivals, to helping the underprivileged, to helping fundraise, just like Carrie just talked about, and strategies for just surviving this world. And or if you've been assaulted, reach out to people. Reach out to people. Use your spheres of influence, your most trusted friends, and say, I need help. I need full frontal help. What kind of resources? What can you think of? And I've had to do that before several times, just, you know, the life of the trans person. And you realize we all need help sometimes.
We do. You're absolutely right. And I think maybe that's a good place to end this. We all need help sometimes. And as women are known for, and as sympathetic men are known for, they support you. And that's what we need. And that's what we have with now. And I could feel it as we were all talking to each other. And I want to thank each one of you for being so honest, for spending the time with us, for your patience.